Thanks so much, Heather, and it's a real privilege to join everyone here today. Can I firstly start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my profound respects to elders past and present, and anyone from First Nations people joining us today. And we acknowledge your continuous culture and connection to the lands in our communities, and particularly at a pivotal time for our nation. Here in Victoria, Voice, Truth and Treaty, we're on that journey, and we're a long way through Voice with our First Peoples Assembly, and with Truth with the Yurruk Justice Commission, and on the pathway to Treaty. Can I acknowledge everyone in this room with a lived or living experience and provide care and services? I feel completely humbled to be in your presence, to then follow Jill, Rebecca, Lily and Peter, and that presentation was outstanding and moving, and gives you every bit of a reference point on why the Royal Commission into Mental Health and Wellbeing was so critical on the stories and outcomes for people with lived experience, and why, as we conclude almost the third year of that reform agenda, it just reminds you of the huge amount of work to continue, and that every waking moment that lived experience and our carers need to be embedded in that journey. And if there was ever a reminder of government or departments or members of parliament again, you just have to spend a few seconds listening to people who've lived at every moment of their lives. It's great to come together with all of you and value the mental health and wellbeing and alcohol and other drug workforces, our carer and lived experience workforces and members here today. And it's really, I should say as well, I'm here on behalf of the new Minister for Mental Health, Ingrid Stitt. Obviously, Gabrielle Williams, as the former Mental Health Minister, has been on a significant journey with community. And then we've also had a change of Premier recently, so it's been a bit busy. But I want to assure everyone that across all of government, indeed, I'm hopeful and quite aspirational across all of Parliament, that the reform agenda here does not lose any momentum. There's internal cabinet processes that have mental health and wellbeing and the reform agenda at front and centre. Having just met the new Minister, Ingrid Stitt, just recently, obviously a significant cabinet minister, has been a part of those discussions, and one of the key things we spoke about in our briefing was the lived and living experience and carers. That was one of the key things we talked about in our briefing, so you'll get to know Ingrid over that time on that reform agenda as well. And today's a good opportunity to come together and showcase excellence and equity in relational practices with families, carers and supporters of people with mental health, alcohol and other drugs. And I know people know these stats, but the Royal Commission acknowledged that 60,000 Victorians care for an adult living with mental illness, and around 9,000 young carers. Now, I wanted to touch on Lily's point because I was Parliamentary Secretary for Education back in the day, last Parliament, and I did have a lot of interactions with carers, particularly Little Dreamers, and the incredible work they do. It's about a year and a half that education outcomes are put back for young people as carers, particularly with those supporting someone with mental health and wellbeing challenges, so alcohol and other drug challenges. And the biggest challenge is for them to identify what they're doing is caring. That's one of the biggest challenges. They front up, get on with it, rock up to school, huge amount of resilience. Like when you meet some of these kids, it's just extraordinary to think that they don't realise what they're doing, carrying their families or their loved ones, and then finding them, and then the disproportionate impact that it has on their lives and outcomes, that you need a disproportionate approach to their education and learning. So that's trauma-informed practice and care in schools, and then the whole inclusive schools agenda. So up until that point, we're really underway with that, but the 9,000 people that we identify as young carers is just the tip of the iceberg of care and responsibilities that are provided across our state. So when I heard Lily's representations, it took me right back to those moments with Little Dreamers, and I know that that continues to be a really key focus going forward. Can I say as well to Jill, that was such a moving contribution as well. It reminds me, and Rebecca's contribution, that each and every time you front up and share your story, that exposes you and the impact that has on mental health and wellbeing. I just want to thank you and everyone for continuing to tell your stories. We need to make sure as a state and a community that we protect and support people who show their vulnerability and front up each day for the betterment of others in our communities and our society. And I really appreciate you bearing all today and showcasing that as well, and describing just the challenges and just the love and empathy. And I can't I think everyone sort of had a breathe-in sharp moment when someone would question years ago parents who support others in that care, in their children or family or adult children. You're a wonderful person, Jill, and it was amazing to hear just the love and empathy that you had and coming through. So thank you so much for that contribution. I had a great opportunity to, and I know Marie Pugh from Tandem had a chance to open the Family Connect Centres recently with Minister Williams. I got to check out the Shepparton one. This is a family and carer support space. It was incredible. And what that will mean across our state for the number of services that have been open to bring, and I think that what Rebecca and Jill were talking about, that connection to other carers, a network to know that you can plug in with other people, socialise the challenges that might be going through, including bureaucratic and sector challenges, and to collaborate and advocate as well. But we checked out that space in Shepparton, and that will be amazing for that Hume region and what this means going forward. So really, to see that and hear that focus from Gateway, and then to Better Health Networks in my area that's connected in on that space as well, was really, really important. So we know that working effectively with families and carers is a key pillar in the capabilities in mental health and wellbeing workforce framework, and that framework really highlights the importance of involving family and other support, care and treatment for people with mental health and wellbeing challenges. And that training and development of our lived experience and carer workforce is really critical. I know we've had a number of inquiries on that. There's a big journey and piece of work to go, but I want to assure everyone that that's a really important frame. One, to skill up and train and pathways in the sector, but then also the support, the care and assistance as you go on that journey, and making sure your mental health and wellbeing is protected and supported as well. That's why we've expanded the Young Carers Networks across Victoria, our carer and access to safe and inclusive and creative spaces to have those brave conversations about mental health and foster that social connection and personal wellbeing. It's vital that we continue to improve the way we work with families and identify young carers and strengthen referral pathways between mental health services, schools and communities. The family and carer lived experience workforce is growing. It's integral, absolutely integral. And I think anyone that's seen some of the national discussion around the National Workforce Mental Health Plan that was just released yesterday as part of Mental Health, World Mental Health Day, that again shows the narrative coming through, not just in Victoria, but nationally on this conversation and journey. The family and carer lived experience workforce, as it grows, we need to embed that into mental health and wellbeing services across our state. And having been about a year into this as well, it is an ongoing journey. Some do it exceptionally, and I'll be honest, some are on a evolving journey. And just whenever you hear a reference of clinicians and how we engage lived experience or carer experience workforce, I always go, no, that's the silo mentality. It needs to be interwoven and interconnected. And so we're on the lookout each and every time that we're changing that practice and changing that approach to have an interwoven and inclusive and supportive practice going forward. And so days like today, a showcase of how we support families and carers, and how our bureaucracies, our health services, and our communities come together and support those caring for others and those with lived experience is really important. And so to Tandem and the carer lived experience workforce, thank you for putting this together. It's a real privilege to just slot in for a bit, hear some incredible contributions, and I have huge imposter syndrome up here. Looking at it, all the people who do so much great work, it's a privilege to be in mental health and suicide prevention. And hopefully today's showcase and collaboration, bringing people together, strengthens your work and understanding, and that you're assured that it is a substantial focus of the Victorian Government going forward, and we're here with you on this journey to make a better mental health and wellbeing system for the future. Thank you so much for your time today.